Top Justice Department officials met this afternoon with a handful of Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill. They were expected to discuss where things stand on the ongoing document production process in the Russia collusion investigation. That meeting comes after some in Congress have threatened impeachment or contempt citation for Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein over access to that material. Tonight, President Trump and his people are trying to minimize both the significance and the damage from the release of a taped conversation with his longtime lawyer about paying off a woman who has claimed a past sexual relationship. In a moment, we'll get live reaction from Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. Before that, a delay in the planning of another summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. We explained that earlier, but Kevin Corke has the story of the day from the White House, tells us what's happening.
Thank you very much.
With his schedule dominated by talk of trade, tariffs, and economic storm clouds brewing both at home and abroad, President Trump waded into even more turbulent waters today.
I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David, so that I'm going to do that right away.
A leaked recording of his private conversation with then-attorney Michael Cohen, occurring just 2 months before the 2016 election, that seems to be the two men apparently discussing paying for the rights to a Playboy model's story about an alleged affair with then-private citizen Trump more than a decade ago.
Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay me. So no. I got no.
The release of the recording sparking a Twitter back and forth, with the president asking why the tape was so abruptly terminated, cut while I was presumably saying positive things. His attorney, Rudy Giuliani, accused Cohen and his attorney, Lanny Davis, of misrepresenting the language from President Trump. For his part, Davis said bluntly, just as Richard Nixon learned, tapes don't lie. Davis said today the recording isn't about innocence or guilt, it's about honesty with the American people.
It's about lies and truth. Giuliani can't make up the words "don't pay." I say to everybody who voted for Donald Trump, don't believe me, I'm a Democrat. Listen to the tape. The words "don't pay" are not heard.
While the recording is at times difficult to understand, it does offer a glimpse into Cohen's strategy to extinguish a problem. What's less clear is to what extent Mr. Trump knew of the plan's details and whether or not it constitutes a violation of law or campaign finance rules, something his lawyer says strikes at the very heart of the issue.
What it makes clear is this is at most an attempt to do something. I don't know of any attempt in this category of crime that they're looking at. So in any event, I don't think anyone can suggest that this represents anything where the president did anything wrong.
Brett, Lanny Davis also told Axios today that there are more tapes and more information set to come out. He also said the days of his client, Michael Cohen, being a good soldier for President Trump, well, those days, he says, are over. Brett?
Kevin Corke live on the North Lawn. Kevin, thanks. Let's get reaction to all of this tonight from Alan Dershowitz, Harvard law professor and the author of the new book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump. He joins us from Martha's Vineyard. Thanks for being here. Your thoughts on this release and what it means?
Well, first, the big question nobody seems to know the answer to is who leaked the tape at a time when a former judge, had already held that it was lawyer-client privileged confidential material. Someone leaked its content, and it was only then that Rudy Giuliani waived the privilege. But at the time it was leaked, it was privileged. This is a very serious matter. It's as if somebody would leak your conversation with your psychiatrist, your doctor, your rabbi, your priest, your spouse. All of these are privileged material. We're not supposed to know what lawyers and clients talk about. This is a typical conversation. No matter what the tape says, it shows a client asking some advice. Should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? The lawyer saying, no, pay it by check. He says, all right, we'll pay it by check. That's the kind of conversation none of us should ever hear. It's the kind of conversation I have with my clients all the time. I just can't imagine, taping a conversation with a client. And then the question is, who released it? Why aren't we asking that question? We can find that out. It's not hard. There are only a limited number of people who had access to that tape.
Well, let's say it's Michael Cohen and Lanny Davis. Does Michael Cohen face some retribution for all that?
Well, it's not Lanny Davis. I know Lanny very well. He's an extraordinarily ethical and competent lawyer. He would never have leaked a lawyer-client confidential material unless it was and until it was waived. We know that Cohen ran into Michael Avenatti at a restaurant, and they had a talk. Maybe Cohen just gossipy said, oh, we have this tape, and here's what it says on the tape. That's a possibility. I don't think it's likely that the former judge leaked it. No way. Her fingerprints would be all over it. She had access to it, or a prosecutor. The cost would be too high. So the question is, did someone in the White House leak it? That would constitute perhaps a waiver. Did someone on the Cohen team or Cohen himself leak it? That would constitute a very serious violation of ethics and lawyer-client privilege. But, you know, we have to know about this, we, the American public. If Cohen willfully and deliberately leaked its content, there could be serious consequences. But I don't want to get there. I don't want to go there because I don't know the answer, and I don't believe in accusing people until we know the facts.
Well, what about the substance of what's talked about and what it indicates? That perhaps Michael Cohen has gotten to a place where he's going to cooperate with federal authorities.
Well, I think we don't have to listen to the tape for that. Listen to Lanny Davis. He says basically that, you know, the loyalty is gone and that Michael Cohen is up for grabs. The president might want to put him on his team by pardoning him the way Bush pardoned Caspar Weinberger, or the prosecutor may want to put him on their team by giving him immunity. But he's no longer loyal, and he's going to get the best deal he possibly can. As to the substance of the tape, it's ambiguous. The context, getting a law firm involved, getting a corporation set up, sounds like they wanted to do it the right way by having paper records. The word cash does apparently come out of Trump's mouth, but it's not completely clear in what context. In the end, they say do it by check, and they don't do anything. So there's no crime here. There's no evidence of a crime here. But Lanny Davis is right. It does raise questions of credibility depending on what the tape says. Next step is give it to a forensic expert, have it really sweetened so we can hear precisely by stretching the words who said what, and then find out why it was cut off so abruptly. Forensic experts can determine whether it was artificially cut off, whether it was part of a call that was cut off. We have a lot to learn about this tape, but the most important question is who leaked it?
Last thing, very quickly, I don't have a few seconds, as you look at this Russia investigation, where do you see this going? Do you see it coming to a head and wrapping up, or do you see it continuing for a long time?
I think he has one more month. If he doesn't wrap it up by September 1st, it's too close to the elections. He's going to have to put it off till after the elections. I don't think we're going to see any indictments in the Oval Office or around the Oval Office or impeachment efforts, although once the Democrats regain the House, if they do, my book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, will become much more relevant because there are going to be people who are running on that and trying to impeach him. But right now, I don't see anything other than a report coming out of the Mueller investigation, and the report will probably either come out soon or it won't come out until after the election.
Alan Dershowitz, new book out, The Case Against Impeaching Trump. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
CNN says one of its reporters was stopped from covering the president's trade announcement late this afternoon in the Rose Garden, and CNN has just issued a statement. Quote, today, CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Collins was denied access to cover an open press event at the White House after posing questions to President Trump earlier in the day. As the network pool reporter, Collins was told by White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications Bill Shine and Press Secretary Sarah Sanders that her questions were inappropriate. They were not. Just because the White House is uncomfortable with a question regarding the news of the day doesn't mean the question isn't relevant and shouldn't be asked. This decision to bar a member of the press is retaliatory in nature and not indicative of an open and free press. We demand better. As a member of the White House press pool, Fox stands firmly with CNN on this issue of access. So far, no response from the White House. Why some Democratic leaders and voters in San Francisco have a change of tune when it comes to the homeless and cleaning up the city. Next. San Francisco stinks. That's not an opinion. That's the reality city leaders are trying to deal with tonight. The source seems to be the city's growing homeless problem and lax rules dealing with it over the years. Now the city's Democratic leadership has apparently had enough. Correspondent Claudia Cowan is in San Francisco.
In some San Francisco neighborhoods, hold your nose and watch your step.
You're seeing people lying on the streets, seeing people passed out on the street. You're seeing people eat out of garbage cans. You're seeing people shoot up.
John Handlery owns one of the biggest hotels in Union Square, a top tourist destination where some visitors are shocked by what they see.
I've never seen so many homeless. I think that's a real put-off for people.
Indeed, the head of the city's Visitors Bureau recently admitted.
We are losing business. We have definite groups that have said that they can't come to San Francisco as long as the streets are like this.
The exact impact on the city's $9 billion tourism industry isn't known. But last month, a major medical association pulled its annual convention from the city, saying its members no longer feel safe, an estimated $40 million loss. Adding to the danger, take a look. Junkies are just dumping their used syringes into the streets. Piles like this are commonplace. Most of the needles are handed out by the San Francisco Department of Public Health to help reduce drug-related diseases. But with no reliable way to get them all back, the city is spending $750,000 to hire 10 people whose sole job is to pick up the needles, some 8,000 every month. San Francisco's new mayor has made the issue a top priority.
I want to get people off the streets who are shooting up. I want to get the needles off the streets. This is why I'm proposing safe injection sites.
But John Handlery says it's time for zero tolerance.
We need to stop taking a point of view that it's their right to be on the street. No, it's their right to be given help, and that's what we should be doing.
San Francisco already spends hundreds of millions of dollars every year trying to help an estimated 7,500 homeless people. Critics say what's needed isn't more money, but a bold new approach. And many in the tourism industry say their bottom line depends on it. Brett.
Claudia Cowan in San Francisco. Claudia, thanks. President Trump is congratulating Brian Kemp for yesterday's victory in the Republican runoff for Georgia governor. Trump had endorsed Kemp, pointing to his tough stance on illegal immigration and support for gun rights. Kemp easily defeated Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle. In November, Kemp now faces Democrat Stacey Abrams, who could become the country's first black female governor. Is there life on Mars? Could there be? Could there have been? There is a new element to that conversation tonight, and that element is liquid water, a lot of it. Correspondent Kristen Fisher is here with details.
Brett, we're talking about a lake of liquid water on Mars right now. If the findings are confirmed, this is the discovery so many scientists have been waiting for, a specific place to target in their search for microbial alien life. Now, the discovery was made not by NASA, but by the Italian Space Agency, using one of the oldest spacecrafts still operational in orbit around Mars, the Mars Express. They used ice-penetrating radar to bounce radio waves off the surface of Mars. And when they got to the planet's south pole, they noticed that the radar profile was very similar to lakes found underneath glaciers here on Earth. These researchers say they spent years digging through the data, and now in a study published today in the journal Science, they say they're convinced they found a roughly 12-mile-long lake underneath a polar ice cap.
We have found liquid water on the subsurface of Mars.
Liquid water is a critical distinction. We've known about ice on Mars since 2008 when NASA's Phoenix lander found it, and we've known about seasonal running water since 2011, thanks to NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. But a standing, stable body of water, that's something else entirely.
All the discoveries in the past have mostly been, oh, there's water ice, there's ice here, ice there, or maybe there's transient droplets forming like dew on the legs of robotic landers or frost on rocks. But this is potentially the mother lode, real liquid water in large amounts underneath the south polar ice cap of Mars.
And that would be a game changer in the search for life on Mars, because it's long been believed that where there is water, there is life. Now the challenge is getting there, getting a rover that can drill down deep inside that polar ice cap to see what kind of life could potentially be locked inside that lake. Brett?
Amazing story. We'll follow it. Kristen, thank you. Up next, an American pastor accused of high crimes in a foreign country will soon be out of jail, but not out of trouble.